We are gathered here today to mourn a death that never had a chance of life. Yes, my friends, the graveyard of cancelled Star Wars games is deep and wide. When we find out that a new Star Wars game is in development, all we can do is hold our breath, cross our fingers, because that game's fate is like a teeter-totter on the side of a cliff. Will it land safely on the ground, or will it tilt towards the edge, being tossed into the abyss of technological history? Let us pray. I apologize for the cold. I feel like shit. What makes this even more of a bummer is that the canceled game I'm talking about here is actually a part of a previously canceled game, which was codenamed Ragtag. Ragtag was supposed to be an adventure game directed by the director of Uncharted, Amy Hennig, and it was being developed by Visceral Games, known for games like Dead Space and Battlefield Hardline. But EA closed Visceral Games in 2017. When Visceral closed down, EA Vancouver took over the game Ragtag. They used some of the previously created assets, but they ultimately changed what the game was gonna be, transforming it into an open world game. That open world game has now been canceled. And according to Jason Schreier, the news editor over at Kotaku, he says that the canceled open world game was still in pre-production. It hadn't entered into production yet. He says that there's actually another EA Vancouver game being designed as we speak, with a release date for fall of 2020 or early 2021. That is according to Jason Schreier. Kotaku has a good track record. According to Kotaku, quote, "This project, which was codenamed Orca, was very early in development but would involve playing as a scoundrel or a bounty hunter who could explore various open world planets and work with different factions across the Star Wars universe," close quote. God damn it, man. That sounds exactly what I've been wanting. I've constantly been saying I want like an open world Fallout 4 type game, Skyrim type Star Wars game. Whenever anyone asks me what type of Star Wars game I want, I pretty much describe that. Quote, "When EA's top decision makers looked at their roadmap for the next few years, they decided that they needed something earlier than the planned release date for Orca, according to two people familiar with what happened. So they canceled Orca in favor of a smaller scale Star Wars project now aimed for a much sooner, likely late 2020, close quote. Kotaku is usually right on the money with their reporting. Still, I tend to take these types of reports with a grain of salt. But the idea that, if true, EA wanted to focus on smaller scale projects is kind of funny to me. Not haha funny, but that's funny. So they wanted to scrap the small scale linear game that was being made by Visceral in order to transform it into a larger open world game, just to turn around again 1 year later and scrap the idea of an open world game for a smaller scale game to favor an early release date. I don't really understand. I don't think in terms of ones and zeros or release dates or timescales or anything like that. I don't have the mover and shaker business mindset. I just think in terms of fun and creative games. Red Dead Redemption 2 took like 8 years to develop, and it is by far a contender for the best game of all time. I actually think it's overtaken my previously held favorite single-player game, Half-Life 2. But that game, Red Dead Redemption 2, took 8 years to make, and it shows. It's different, it's incredible, it's so deep. I would rather a game take its time, take 8 years of effort to make, giving the gamer something new and unique rather than favoring a release date or some arbitrary empty spot on the calendar. I'm curious how the team developing Orca feels about this. Obviously, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but it has to be a bummer, right? Holy shit, we're making a giant open-world Star Wars game. Never mind. Obviously, I want to play new Star Wars games right now. I want to play them today, but I'm in no rush for them. I want them to take their time and get everything smoothed out. Stick with an idea and see it through until the end. We all know those people who start something and then just give up or stop trying shortly after, right? Don't be like that, EA. Don't be like that. Come up with a concept and see it through to the end. Take your time, take 8 years to make a kick-ass open world Star Wars game. In 8 years, I'll be 40, and my daughter will be 8 years old. We could play that kick-ass open world Star Wars game together. I want that. I know I've said this a lot over the past few years, but when EA acquired the license, like 5 or 6 years ago or so, I expected them to push a shitload of Star Wars games out, announce projects left and right. But we've had Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, those have been fun games, but I want more, man. I expected to be oversaturated with Star Wars games and not be able to keep up with things coming out. But to my surprise, that has been the complete opposite. We'll find out about games that were in production. We'll find out that they fizzled out or got canceled left and right. It's been really disappointing, And you guys are all Star Wars fans. You guys are all probably gamers too, and I'm sure it's been disappointing for you as well. I understand that games take a long time to make. I understand that we all have to be patient. I get that. But it feels like there's been a lot of wasted time, a lot of moving, a lot of shaking, and maybe there's some secret project we don't know about. That's probably the case if I had to guess. You don't want to announce games when they're super early under the production for this reason alone, right? You announce announce a game and then all of a sudden you cancel it, and maybe you only worked on it for a little bit, you had some concept art drawn up, you had some ideas written down, but then it gets reported that it was canceled and everybody's bummed out when you didn't really work on it that much. So I understand they don't announce things early on, but still, goddammit, I want some Star Wars games, man. I've talked about EA having exclusive publishing rights for a while now, and how I've never really liked it being that way. I don't understand the licensing or the legal side of things. I'm sure some more legal and business savvy folks out there will roll their eyes at what I'm about to say, but when it comes to video games, I would love the Star Wars license to be more widely available, multiple developers and multiple publishers, competition, interesting ideas being pursued by various studios. I know that has never really been the history of Star Wars games, but we're definitely in a Star Wars game drought. I know that there have been a shitload of canceled Star Wars games before even EA got a hold of the license, but again, we're definitely in a Star Wars game drought. I love the idea of low-risk, high-reward games, meaning, let's say Lucasfilm or Disney or whoever approaches a smaller scale developer, hell, maybe an independent developer, and they ask them to make a Star Wars real-time strategy game, right? Low risk, high reward. You can make it on the cheap and sell it on Steam. Again, I have no idea the legal side of things, or if that's even a possibility. As a gamer, I like the idea of multiple studios, developers, publishers making Star Wars games. As a Star Wars fan, I like that as well. Innovating, keeping things fresh, focusing on one project at a time. Unfortunately, I don't think that open world Star Wars game will ever see the light of day. The history of canceled games in general being pulled from the grave and resurrected almost seems non-existent, but I could be wrong. When I heard the premise of what this game was going to be from the Kotaku article, I was really bummed out because we're not going to be able to see it. I want an open world Star Wars game where you can just run jobs and bounce from planet to planet. That sounds like a goddamn dream, where you're living in the Star Wars universe and not just playing in the Star Wars universe. I don't know. Who knows where it's going to go from here. I am really excited for Jedi Fallen Order from Respawn. I'm curious what it's gonna be, but I think we can check the idea of Jedi Fallen Order being an open world game off the list. At least that's how it seems, unfortunately. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. HelloGreedo, out.